Snacks. Good afternoon, Tom Curran. How we doing?
Hello, friends. How are you enjoying the pregnant pause between conference championship and Super Bowl?
It's funny. The king of the pregnant pause brings up the pregnant pause football weekend.
Wasn't it more, Tom? Wasn't it more fun when we had all of the excitement and anticipation and anxiety and nonstop content of the Pats being involved? This kind of feels like a grind.
It kind of does. It's funny because the domination of different weeks by different controversies would oftentimes, pass the time. Whether it was 2014 Super Bowl in early 2015 by Deflategate, 2016, whatever in God's name was going on at that point. I mean, there was always junctures during that. Well, what happens after they win? Is Brady gone? Is Belichick gone? Where will Garoppolo go? I mean, for the fodder was incredible.
So are you not enjoying what seems to be a very hopeful, optimistic January into February? Am I wrong reading the tea leaves that everybody in Patriot Nation seems to be sort of on an uptick right now with the arrival of Mike Vrabel and his coaching staff and the personnel department? And am I reading that, or do you think there is a lot of hope in Patriot Nation right now?
No, I think there's incredible amounts of hope. I definitely do. I think that, there was trepidation about the move on from Bill, as realistic as the need for it was. As bad as the team had gotten, there was trepidation about the next direction, and I think that Robert Kraft kind of articulated that when he said it. Basically, it was, we'll see how it goes. We're going to take Bill out. It's a monumental extraction. We'll see how it goes this year. Fingers crossed. So I don't think that there was a lot of optimism that accompanied last off season. It was, okay, I hope it's – Kraft said it himself, actually, when you think about it. It's a great question, Andy. He said, I hope we don't struggle. Because he knew that it might look bad. So it did. And I think now you actually have things that you can refer to that, invigorate you. There is a quarterback that you can project. There is a cornerback in Gonzalez you can project. There is a head coach who's been at a high level. There's an offensive coordinator who's coached in 6 Super Bowls. So it's inevitable that there is, I guess, less trepidation. And I wonder, guys, what kind of climate there would be right now had the Kraft said, you know what, we're going to stay true to what we thought, and we're going to stick with Gerard.
It wouldn't have been – I don't think it would have been good.
No, I don't think it would have been – I don't think it would have been good at all either, Tom. And I don't think you would probably see the level of the sort of like intelligence and experience we have in the room now. I don't think you would have a Terrell Williams. I don't think you would maybe you'd have Josh McDaniels back, but you wouldn't have the multiple decades of head coaching experience. I think you'd probably have more experience, and, it's fine and dandy to point back and say, like, oh, they should have had this many guys back there for Gerard last year. But everyone was trying to find their way, and ultimately a lot of people found their way out the door, which is unfortunate. But here we are. It looks good. Optimism is abounding again in Foxborough. You've got Vrabel and company at the Senior Bowl. Are we now loaded up? Like, are there any more positions for Vrabel to fill, or do we have full boat and now it's everyone on board rowing in the same direction?
Well, my sense would be that there are probably a few position coaches. There's been such an onslaught, Fitzy, of hires. Yeah. And title giving has not occurred. Like, for instance, we presume Doug Marrone will be the offensive line coach, but I don't think, Andy, he was announced as such necessarily, or even he was announced.
Yeah, I don't believe so.
So, who's going to replace Brian Belichick, who was a really good coach, who did a good job with his safeties. Kyle Duggar's situation, which I thought Andrew Callahan from the Herald did a really good job in an interview with Duggar, talking about his play level and the injury this year. But that's a side note. I thought Pellegrino was, for a guy who was a former lacrosse coach fashioned by Bill Belichick into becoming a football coach, Mike Pellegrino did a good job with the cornerbacks overall, I think, in his tenure here. So we don't know those positions necessarily or who's in them in the pecking order, but I think by and large, yeah, they're filled out.
And I'm impressed with the coaching staff, Tom. I'm curious just the profile of the coaching staff. Vrabel's playing 14 years, and he's coached 14 years. That's a lot of experience. You have the combination. I think you have, I think you have 11 years or more than that, probably, if you add Doug Marrone. I mean, there's a lot of these coaches that have been head coaches and been coaching for close to 30 years, Tom. And I guess was there a concerted effort to bring experienced coaches, teachers. I mean, I keep hearing Mike talking about teachers, Terrell Williams talking about the importance of teaching football, which I think, to be honest with you, it was kind of it was a lost art. I just feel like in my era, more football and technique was being taught and not as much in today's NFL. Was there a concerted effort, you think, on their part to just bring in established guys that have proven themselves, they're at points now where they just want to, kind of be a part of, they don't need to be head coaches. They just want to be part of something. And so that they've assembled a coaching staff that from an experience standpoint, I mean, it's really impressive, particularly when you compare it to last year's. I mean, do you think that was kind of their thinking this offseason to get the most experienced coaches we could in here?
I think, yeah, and I think that the 2024 Patriots would have loved to have done the same. But again, it was so tenuous as to what the future of this organization was going to be. And Gerard coaches all the way through a season and hadn't gone through, the normal pipeline of being a coach where you make all the contacts throughout the league, just going from player to business to coach. He hadn't really been out. So I don't think he had the opportunity to network in a way that was going to make you a real magnet to veteran experienced coaches. So definitely, I think that anything would show more experience among the coaching staff than what we saw last year. I think it's interesting you point out the teacher and educational aspect of it, because Bill Belichick, it'll be interesting to see how well his North Carolina teams do, but he's lamented how many times that the fundamentals and the teaching, Brady as well, and you probably do too, Ted, the fundamentals and the teaching that you could get when you had two-a-days and four-year college players and there was no NIL, and the format of college offenses and defenses were so different that you could really fashion players the way you wanted to. It's kind of gone. The game's different. The game looks different. The game is played differently. So guys arrive with less ability to understand how do I do particular things, especially on the offensive line. So, yeah, I think that's vital to make a good team. Like, look at the teams in the Super Bowl. Look at that. Who the hell was it?
The defensive coordinators.
Second time this week, the offensive line coach, I can't think of his name, but he's like kind of a Dante Scarnecchia mold type guy as a teacher. He creates offensive linemen who perform at the level they have for Philadelphia, and you need to have those guys.
Tom, the phrase forced marriage has been used a lot at various times this offseason. And one of the forced marriage situations I want to fixate on is sort of jumping off from that experience question offensively. So you have Josh McDaniels, who's been there, done that in this building multiple times. Now he's got Doug Marrone, former head coach. Now you got Thomas Brown, passing game coordinator, former interim head coach. There's a lot of cooks in that kitchen under Mike Vrabel's direction. Do you think that could be problematic at all, especially for Josh, who I don't know how much he's dealt with a situation like that?
Could it be problematic? Absolutely. I think that we have a tendency to, at this time of year, you don't spend all your time looking at, hey, how can this work out great? You envision, how can this go south? And I think that we would look at a situation like this and say, well, egos are going to get involved, and individuals are going to say, I don't do it that way, I do it this way, and guys are going to start mumbling and grumbling behind the scenes. But generally, as we all know, when we all start new jobs or start new ventures,
like an afternoon show?
Yes.
Same thing.
Perfect example.
Ted won't listen to me. He thinks he knows more.
And how much you guys like it. You're right now working beautifully in concert together.
Don't laugh.
And that's because you want to.
Yes.
Did you laugh when you said that?
We're all pulling for the same thing.
It's a good question. It's the same anywhere.
Yeah.
And you get guys who are in their 50s with Marrone, Vrabel, McDaniels, who've been in combined 20 conference championships between the three of them.
Mm.
I think that you look at it and say, could guys start to piss and moan about somebody not taking someone else's advice, or about the practice schedule, or how come this coach isn't getting the most out of his players, or why do you yell at me like that? Absolutely. 1,000,000%. I read a really interesting Davante Adams quote to just kind of sidestep and use an example. Davante Adams, I was wondering, could that be a player that, if released by the Jets, the Patriots could pursue? And he had an interesting quote with McDaniels that said Josh had to lower his expectations with the Raiders because he's not working with a bunch of former Harvard grads, with players who had great success. So how will different individuals, that's a good question to maybe pose to Josh, is how will a guy like Josh McDaniels, who's unbelievably demanding and open about when his demands are not being met, how will Vrabel and McDaniels work together when Josh is like, these guys can't do it? And Vrabel's like, relax, they can do it. You know what I mean?
Yep.
It's just that day-to-day stuff.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was going to say, like, now Drake May's down doing the Pro Bowl games, and obviously we can't wait to see what he and Josh do together and how Josh is able to elevate his game and find a next level on top of that. We love all the coaching hires, but we played a little game this week where we graded all of the NFL coaching hires to date thus far, and I'm curious, is Vrabel your favorite of the 6 that have been made, and which ones stand out to you as like the best and could be a problem for the Patriots, and which ones are like, wait, what were they doing over there?
I believe that Vrabel is, and I would have said that well before the opportunity even opened up. Do you want Mike Vrabel with his experience, or do you want Ben Johnson, who's an unproven commodity, especially when you take a look and evaluate what the situations are within each team? So to me, I think Ben Johnson's in a really great spot because he does have some players there offensively in place. And I think Vrabel's in the best spot, and he's the best hire for a team. So to me, Vrabel is, the best hire. I like the Pete Carroll hire has novelty to it.
Mm-hmm.
I wish him well. I'm sure you do too, Ted.
Oh, yeah.
But I don't know how well that's going to go. So I really, Aaron Glenn, I'm sure it's going to be fine to a degree, but how's ownership at all these places? How committed are they? I mean, the Jets are screwed. I almost said the other word. They are screwed. They got no quarterback. Garrett Wilson's entering the last year. I'm going back to the Devontae Adams thing. Garrett Wilson's going into the last year of his rookie contract at $10 million. Do you give him another contract? Does he want to stay? Who are you going to get for a quarterback if you're the Jets? Joe Flacco? You can find someone in the draft? So I just look at it, and the Patriots are in such a good position, really in the division, too. I mean, Tua's making over $50 million. Mike McDaniel was in a prove-it kind of season. Tyreek Hill wants out. Now he's okay, but he's definitely going to want out again. The Patriots are in a good spot, except for the team above them.
He's Tom Curran, NBC Sports Boston. Appreciate you joining us, Tom. You heading out to the Super Bowl? We're going to talk to you from New Orleans next week?
Yes, I am.
Ooh.
I'm leaving Sunday afternoon.
Hey, I got some great food recs for you, Tommy, next week if you want.
Looking forward to it, Tom. Enjoy yourself out there.
Buddy.
Thanks, TC.
Tommy Curran with